the Jack Miller Press Box and Media Center at CAA Arena, the Belleville Sens podcast is back for another week, season number 3, episode number 9 here on the Belleville Sens Entertainment Network and wherever you get your podcasts. David Foot and Brock Ormond here, and glad to have you with us this week to recap another successful homestand, if you will. A couple of home games against the Laval Rocket on the weekend. Sens with a shootout loss and a victory, so the point streak has stretched to 6. Belleville's on a 4-game home point streak and a 4-game road point streak to go along with the 6-game streak overall that they are riding right now. And we'll talk about that this week. We'll talk to the man of the hour, really, from the weekend, Malcolm Subban, doing the post-game media on Saturday after picking up his first win in his first start since coming back to Belleville. And we'll get you set for another meeting with the Syracuse Crunch and another meeting with the provincial rival Toronto Marlies in the big building coming up this weekend. All that ahead on this episode of the Belleville Sens podcast, so don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you're listening. Toss us a rating and a review if you like what you hear, and we would really appreciate that. I'm catching up, Brock. You're going to be filling me in this week on the show. I did have an eye on the games from Sarnia last weekend at the U17 World Challenge, but really did seem like an exciting weekend of hockey, and I've had some feedback, some notes from folks who were in the building this weekend. They said the atmosphere was outstanding. Was it that good of a weekend?
Yeah, absolutely it was, and then some. It was 2 really good games, really close games. Both Laval and Belleville earn a victory, and Belleville, much like they did against Toronto a couple weekends ago, stopping a winning streak. The Laval Rocket, 8 games Laval had, if you count the one as well on Friday night, that shootout victory. Belleville comes in and stops them, coming back, too, from down 2-0, and it was late in the second period. The Sens were trying to gather some momentum, and they do get one thanks to an Oskar Pettersson marker, and then it just extrapolated from there. It was a late penalty as well from Zach Hayes that turned the course of that game as well. Xavier Bourgault ties it early in the third, and then the winner from Max Gannett on a pinch-in. First goal of the season couldn't have come at a better time for the defenseman from Quebec, and Belleville ends up taking the victory. But it was great atmosphere, and again, a lot of heartwarming moments courtesy of the man between the pipes, Malcolm Subban, getting his first victory and his first start as a Belleville Senator, back where it all started from 11 years prior. Last made a start Game 7 of the OHL Eastern Conference Final against the Barrie Colts. That was 11 years ago, and things look a heck of a lot different now than they did back then.
Yeah, they certainly do, and he's been using the term déjà vu a lot. You'll hear that in his interview coming up later on in the show. I can only imagine the types of things that flood back into your head when you come back to a place like this where you've spent so much time during your formative years and, developed not only as a hockey player but as a young man. And I know Malcolm has talked about the impact that the city of Belleville and the people of this community have had on not only himself but his brothers Jordan and PK as well. So, yeah, really cool to see him, back in the organization, in the city, and now on the ice and finding some results as well. But he made an appearance. He made his first appearance on Saturday because Levi Merolainen left the game early, on Friday night. Friday he made his first appearance. Saturday he made his first start. Let's just talk about that Friday game first, Brock, because it was a little bit similar to something we've seen with the Sens here and there throughout the course of this season and in seasons past, where they get a little bit of a lead and then they just can't hang on to it, end up losing in overtime. But again, another competitive game with lessons learned, I think, for this young group, and they put those right into practice on Saturday. For sure, and it helps going back-to-back against the same opponent, knowing the traits and tendencies of the opposition team. And on Friday night, it was a good battle back and forth. Belleville had 3 separate 1-goal leads, and 2 goals courtesy of Angus Cruikshank, who really is the type of guy that needs to be relied upon for scoring for this Belleville Sens club. Ends up resulting in Laval coming back all 3 times to tie it, including with 100 seconds left. Luke Tuck jamming one in over the shoulder of Malcolm Subban, who is in an enviable position of coming off the bench cold with Levi Merolainen tweaking something and going down the tunnel. Really late in the game. Yeah, too. Late in the game. It was about between 6 and 8 minutes left, and then Malcolm comes in and was incredible. 5 out of 6 shots stopped from the Laval Rocket. Little chip play by Luke Tuck, though, in front. Not much Malcolm could do with it. And then he
only stops a couple in the shootout, but Logan Mailloux whips one home to win it in the skills competition, and then Cole Reinhardt couldn't get a handle on a deke against Connor Hughes, the one-time Trenton Golden Hawk, who was, by the way, really good as well in that game, 28 stops and the shootout victory. This Laval team played Belleville tough, and they were never out of the game, and as evidenced by the scoreline. And in the end, the Sens, talking to David Bell afterward, he said he loved the first period. It was a great frame, got a 1-0 lead out of it, and then after that, something just kind of, in his mind, fell apart on the team, and Laval just came back with a lot of speed and put the Sens back a little bit on their heels. And 2 goals in the first minute of the second and third periods from Alex Barré-Boulet and Brandon Gignac really did some of the damage, and it really forced Belleville to have to kind of play catch-up while being tied, which certainly didn't help the factor much. And in the end, the Sens ended up falling in the shootout, but it was a great game, and just over 3,000 fans for Military Appreciation Night, and it was nice to have Tim Durkin and I get caught up with some of the military members there and at the rink, and it was an awesome atmosphere.
Yeah, and again, I've heard from plenty of folks who were in the building or even watching online that they said it really seemed like the barn was bumping. It felt a little bit more like the end of last season when Belleville and Laval were tangling with playoff spots on the line. And the season series took a little bit to get going, but they'll see each other again next week, and then it'll heat up a little bit more from there. So, again, a tough result on Friday after a good start, but as we alluded to Saturday, no question really, after, of course, Laval went up 2-0. It was almost a flip-flop. The Rocket with the strong start, Belleville with the pushback, and they end up coming back and picking up the victory at home on Saturday night. Yeah,
the Sens had a little bit of trouble actually getting going offensively, and there was some angsty moments there for a while because Laval kept putting the pressure on in the forecheck, and a lot of people maybe were wondering if Belleville was going to really break through that stingy, ironclad Laval defense, but they did, and it was thanks to a big penalty kill, and we'll hear from it later on, but Oskar Pettersson getting a goal after trailing Jeremy Davies on a home run lob pass by Garrett Pilon, who has been an assist machine lately with a bunch of helpers over the last 3 games. Davies fights off a checker, drops it off to Pettersson. He scores through the 5-hole of Jakob Dobesh. That came with less than a minute left. Then Zach Hayes takes, quite frankly, an undisciplined penalty right at the buzzer where he's face-washing a Belleville player. He gets thrown off, and that completely changed the momentum of the game, like I said. Tie game early on from Xavier Bourgault, the tying marker on a nice centering pass from Stephen Halliday, who, by the way, had an outstanding weekend with a couple of points and even got into a scrap later on in that Saturday game with Logan Mailloux. Took him right off the ice, and talk about a battle for talent and skill. Those two guys have some of the best in the AHL and the most skill in the AHL. And we talk about how great that was. And Halliday sets up Bourgault, and then Gannett with the winner. And again, Belleville just seemed like they locked it right down. They played airtight defense, no room for error at all, and held Malcolm Subban to only 4 shots faced in the period. Not any of them were really close, dangerous opportunities. So talk about helping out your goaltender in a big way, and Malcolm certainly credited that to his mates afterwards. An outstanding effort, outstanding game, and for 2 teams that were 2 of the most penalized clubs in the AHL last year, it was a pretty well-disciplined weekend outside of that Hayes penalty, which led to Belleville pretty much taking over the game.
A first start for Malcolm Subban in Belleville as a Senator, a first appearance, a first victory. We had a first goal of the season for Stephen Halliday, and we had a big goal from Oskar Pettersson to cue the comeback on Saturday night. We'll hear from all 3 of those guys when we come back on this episode of the Belleville Sens podcast, Season 3, Episode 9. We're back in about 30 seconds or so.
Skate into the holiday season with the Stars. Stars on Ice 2024 Holiday Tour with figure skating icon Elvis Stoico, Olympic medalist Caitlin Osmond, Caitlin Weaver and Andrew Poche, Keegan Messing, Satoko Miyahara, Elash Balde, and more. Stars on Ice, coming to CAA Arena December 8th. Unwrap your tickets at starsonice.ca.
Back on season number 3, episode number 9 of the Belleville Sens podcast. David Foot and Brock Ormond here. We recap the couple of matchups with the Laval Rocket from last weekend in our opening segment. Again, a 4-3 shootout loss on Friday on Military Appreciation Night, and a 3-2 victory on Saturday on Loyalist College Student and Alumni Night. Coming up later on in the show, we will get you set for this week's matchups. Tomorrow night, Wednesday the 13th, Syracuse Crunch are visiting CAA Arena again, 7 p.m. puck drop. It's Salvation Army night. Members of the Belleville Salvation Army will be with us to kick off their 2024 fundraising campaign. And then on Saturday, it's the first trip to the Big Barn in Toronto. Battle of Ontario resumes at Scotiabank Arena, the home of the Maple Leafs. And we'll have 3 busloads of fans making the trip to Hogtown on Saturday, and that's a 1:30 start. So 7 o'clock on Wednesday at home to Syracuse, 1:30 on Saturday on the road in Toronto. And that is the week ahead. We will get to that coming up later in the program. In this segment, we wanted to run through some of the post-game comments from last weekend because, again, there were some really big performances. Brock talked a lot about Malcolm Subban returning to Belleville. You mentioned Stephen Halliday scores a pretty big goal, and then Oskar Pettersson, who is a guy that, I think Sens fans are really looking forward to seeing eventually getting going, gets one, and again, a big one to kind of turn the tide in that game against Laval on Saturday. Who do you want to hear from first, Brock? Who stood out most for you?
Yeah, Subban and Halliday have to be two of the most. Halliday was incredible, had 3 points, and again got in that fight with Logan Mailloux, as mentioned, and took one of the best players on the Laval Rocket roster off the ice late in a crucial one-goal game. So that's a smart, high IQ play that maybe he wasn't quite thinking about at the time as he was battling with the Laval defenseman. But Halliday had a great game and a great weekend overall. But, it's got to be Malcolm because everybody loves hearing from him, and he's so excited. You couldn't wipe the smile off the guy's face after first being signed here and then playing and getting his first victory and his first start as a Belleville Senator. Malcolm has got to be the guy.
All right, we'll start with Malcolm Subban here on Season 3, Episode 9 of the Belleville Sens podcast.
Malcolm, when you look back at a game like this one where you're back in your old junior hockey hometown, what goes through your mind at the start of a game like this, and could you have scripted a game like this any better than how it went for you?
Oh, no, I mean, honestly, just the deja vu, even the intros and stuff with, the starting lineups and stuff, it's amazing. It's honestly, it's so much, it feels like it was yesterday, but it's at the same time, it's been a long time, so, but, no, it's just an unreal feeling. I've never experienced anything like this. It's been awesome, so.
And how do you then, as a goaltender, kind of keep your focus, too? Because I'm sure lots of flashbacks are coming through, but at the same time, you had a heck of an opponent staring you down tonight, too, that you were obviously able to adapt to.
Yeah, it's always tough. I think, over the years, as you get older, you kind of just try to, learn to settle it in. But it's never easy. But, you just try and do your best and just focus and dial it in and play your game and, try and block out the noise for, when it's time to play. And, so I'm just happy that we got the win tonight for sure.
Tell me a bit about how this game kind of evolves, because it was a busy first period for you, and there's some big saves you make that if you don't, it's probably a very different game down the stretch. How big and how important did you feel you were in that first? And then how much maybe do you credit your team with how they locked it down in the third as well?
Exactly. I think even in the first and second, too, we had some great blocks, I think, which could have been goals. And Bear Brûlé, he's a good player. He's getting those pucks one-timers, and he's tough because, he's looking to pass, but he can shoot it also. So, kudos to the guys for, being able to take the passing lanes and also staying in the lane for a shot, So I think it's a great team win tonight, which is huge. I know against a good team, it's a huge win for our squad. So just looking to, get some momentum from that and just keep going.
That said, good teams like Laval are always going to get opportunities. And when they've gotten to the front of your net, they've gotten a few of these point-blank chances. You had an early one when you came in yesterday as well. You make that stop, and then there's never any rebound, too. How important has sort of controlling that crease been for you early on here as you settle in with a new team, too?
Yeah, it was my first game and first start in a long time. And, the guys did a great job, honestly, of boxing out. Sometimes the rebounds there, but they boxed out one, allowed me to, cover the rebound. So, like I said, it was a great team win, great all-around, effort. So just, looking to keep that going moving forward here.
Now you've had a few weeks in Belleville. You've been here for a few games as well. Are you recognizing people that kind of from the past with the Bulls, or have other people kind of chimed in to reconnect with you now that you've been back in town?
Oh, yeah, it's been awesome. Talk to my Bill. It's, got some great support and obviously, seeing Bruce Mackey again, kept in touch with him over the years and, being able to see him again. I haven't gotten to a chapel yet. I'm excited to get to a chapel back with him. Obviously, doing chapels on various other teams since I left. On teams where we had it. So, I'm happy to get back in there with him for sure.
And then just a final thing for you, building on this game here for you and for the team in general. You did so many good things here tonight. What are the biggest keys, whether on the ice or mental, to keep kind of pushing things in this positive direction the team seems to be creating?
Yeah, I think, just playing as a unit, I think that's when we're at our best, when we're playing as a unit. And, you saw there in the third with the comeback, it's, we started playing like that, we're a tough team to beat. Obviously, Laval's a great team, so getting three out of 4 points against them was huge tonight.
So there's Malcolm Subban after his first victory as a member of the Belleville Senators. Like Brock said, just about a dozen years or so from when he last played here as a member of the Belleville Bulls. We can talk all day about what it means to have a solid veteran netminder in your stable of goaltenders, and we did last week, but I don't think that you can really quantify, what it means to have this type of person in your group, this type of leader in your group, somebody who has so much experience, in the NHL, all around the AHL, beyond. He's just going to add so much to this team in terms of the, off-ice depth, if you want to call it that, and the culture and the personalities here around the room.
Yeah, certainly, and those 200-plus games in the AHL can't really steer you wrong. And for Malcolm Subban, even after Friday's game, when David Bell talks about how Malcolm's a pro coming off the bench, it's like old hat. He understands what it means, and he understands that sometimes you're going to have to be put in a pinch like he was, and did look pretty good. And in the end of the day, it ends up working out for him in the long run. And like you said, a great, quiet, humble individual, and a guy that really can lead the Belleville Senators to good things if he gets on a roll, which it appears like he might here pretty soon. Now that he's got one start under his belt, one relief appearance, he'll feel right at home now with this Belleville Sens squad.
All right, speaking about guys who are going to lead this team to big things, our next two guests that we'll hear from those post-game availabilities on the weekend are exactly that. Stephen Halliday and Oskar Pettersson, both a couple of the guys who kind of carry the offensive future of this team on their sticks right now, and both guys who were able to find the net on the weekend. We'll start with Stephen Halliday. He didn't score in the handful of games he was here in the regular season last year. We all know how he kind of became a cult hero for this team in the playoffs by scoring a bunch and leading the team in points. Is the hope, it seems, that he's going to get off the mark a little bit faster now? The floodgates will hopefully open for him now that he's got one.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems like it's all it takes is one, like you said. Just as soon as you get that goal, that one goal or the 1 point or whatever, when you're scuffling a little bit, it tends to kind of roll out, and you end up being much more comfortable for, because now you got that weight off your shoulders. You have no pressure. You can just go out and play and succeed and contribute like you had before. And for Stephen Halliday, he had a great playoff top scorer last year in the postseason, and here in the regular season, he's played well. Like, he's been buzzing around the net here. It just hasn't really worked out for him until Saturday night, when he picked up a goal and an assist on Friday, and then a big helper on the tying marker from Bourgault on Saturday. It was a one-timer, and it was a pitch and catch with Garrett Pilon. They go back and forth, trying to get the goalie's eyes moving, and in the end, Connor Hughes just got dizzy from it, and Halliday slapped one right through his 5-hole, and it was a beautiful shot. Had a screen in front and kept himself abreast of where the goalie was going, and he ends up putting it right through. So awesome stuff for Stephen Halliday, and I'm sure there's more where that came from him going down the stretch here.
Yeah, perhaps one of the smartest hockey guys on the team, Stephen Halliday. He's up next on this episode of the Belleville Sens podcast.
Stephen, when you look back at this weekend, a goal for you, a couple big assists, a big fight down the stretch there in this game tonight. What kind of stood out to you the most, and how would you describe the feeling of how much you contributed this weekend?
I think I just sticking with it throughout the weeks. It's a long season, just kind of learning from the older guys, ups and downs. So just kind of staying level-headed, and obviously it was great to contribute, and thankfully we got 3 out of the 4 points this weekend.
Coach Bell yesterday talked about how you had put in a lot of work when you guys had that long week to get things going with practice and the skills coach coming in and all that, what were the biggest things you maybe worked on that turned you into a guy that produced so much this weekend?
Yeah, no, I went on an off day with Belleville, like him and Bond just did like some extra reps. I feel like when you're, not scoring or doing, just things aren't going in. So I think just getting the reps will give you confidence, and sure enough, did this weekend.
And besides confidence, you were up against a really, really good team here, but you guys managed to convert on the power play regularly. You, of course, succeeding individually. What were the biggest keys to you being able to break through in such a dramatic way this weekend?
I think as a team, I think we put in the work this weekend. We've been playing some pretty good hockey. I think we played Syracuse really well last week and kind of built off that. And Subban was great for us in net tonight, and it's not easy coming in yesterday and stopping as many as he did. So I think it was a team effort.
You obviously had plenty of time to adjust from the college game to pro last year, but with this being your full kind of from the start season in the AHL, what difference has that made, and how much of a benefit did you take out of last summer to kind of lead you into this year too?
Yeah, it's already been a long start to the season. We had a great camp in Ottawa, and it's good to learn from the guys up there, and then coming in here, I think just kind of finding your game, how you can make plays and stuff in the AHL, and obviously I'm still learning, and I'm excited to just keep getting better as the weeks go on.
So you guys had that long rest heading into this weekend. Now the games keep coming with Syracuse in on Wednesday night. Those two, you guys and them clearly hate each other already. What kind of an emotional game do you think that's going to be, and how do you pick up what you did this weekend and keep improving on it too?
Yeah, I think like Justin was saying, our strength coach, we got a really good group of guys who just come in and work hard, and each guy pushes each individual. Like Crooker's out there all the time. I want to keep pace with Crooker, and there's a reason he's leading the team in goals. Like he's out there working on a shot all the time. So I think just we all keep putting in the work. So I think that's only going to translate to nice success.
So some nice words from Stephen Halliday. You talk about a guy who really understands, I think, where he is on his development timeline. He's not in a rush to make that next big jump. He's just ready to be here and to work and do what he has to do to progress himself and then make that jump eventually. He knows where he's at.
For sure, and again, like you mentioned a couple of times, it is an adjustment from the college level schedule to an AHL. So you go from about 30 to 40 games or so, give or take. You go from that to 72 in the season, and then potentially however long you go in the playoffs. It is kind of a daunting task to try and keep yourself healthy and motivated, if you will, between that. But Stephen Halliday's a guy that's like you said, knows where he's at. He is motivated. He's smart enough to get himself in a good position to try and win and to try and score and be a contributor on this Belleville Sens team. And he has been so far, even though the points haven't come in waves like he hoped and like he had in last year's playoffs. It'll come eventually, and once he gets that one, like you said, he's going to start flying because he's one of those guys that when it rains, it pours, and for him, it's in a positive way. And after his great college career, he'll come back and understand what it takes to be a professional level player, which means having to play more games, get more reps, and you got to work on stuff off the ice like he has. And in the end of the day, it's going to work out for him in the long run. And surely Ottawa is going to be thinking highly of him.
Yeah, absolutely. As will they about our final guest this week, Oskar Pettersson, who scores again a big goal to cue the comeback. Not his first of the season, but also a guy who I'm sure is not filling the net as much as he would like to be. Somebody who is extremely excited to get over here to North America early in the new year in 2024 and really fit in pretty well. He played a whole bunch, didn't get much experience come playoff time, but early on in this year, he's had a ton of ice time. He's in the lineup basically every night, and it seems like the coaching staff is giving Oskar Pettersson every opportunity to develop and to succeed here this season.
For sure, and again, a third-round draft pick in 2022 of the Ottawa Senators, and Pettersson, for him last year was a big adjustment, not quite the same as Stephen Halliday, but an adjustment in itself, coming over from Sweden where the ice is a little different, the play styles maybe are a smidge different, and he comes over to Belleville, gets 7 points in 29 games. He's got 3 in 10 this year, and he's contributing from the bottom of the lineup. And eventually that's going to pay off, if there's any injuries or recalls or anything like that. You don't want that to happen to this Belleville Sens team, but if it does, then Oskar Pettersson's right there to make a contribution like he has. And his goal off the drop pass from Jeremy Davies on Saturday was the thing that started the whole comeback off for the Sens. And it's a guy like him that can give that extra spark to the lineup and really fuel those other guys, those top guys that may not be scoring as much or are struggling or pressing a little bit. You got a guy like Pettersson there that can give that spark, and he did that on Saturday in particular.
Yeah, hasn't been scoring a ton, but scores, as Brock says, in pretty opportune times. He had a really nice one in Laval last season that was assisted by Josh Curry, and you'll hear this nice one a little bit later on from this past weekend, but let's hear from the man himself. Oskar Pettersson rounds out our interview features this week on episode number 9 of Season 3 of the Belleville Sens podcast.
Oskar, take me back, if you can, to that opening goal for you guys. I mean, obviously a bit of a tough start in this one. You're down 2-0. A lot of reason for the team to be a bit down. Obviously, how key was the goal, and can you take me through how you guys made it happen and started to key that comeback?
No, as you say, it was a huge goal. I saw Pils break up the play there on the PK. Both of us knew that Dave was coming out of the box, so I was just trying to sneak out a little bit, go for the rush chance there. Saw Dave got the puck there, and just trying to fill in. Felt that I was open, and Dave made a great play, and just got to shoot it and went in.
It was kind of a really different game from yesterday. I mean, you guys had that great start yesterday, and things kind of petered out down the stretch. Is it fair to say tonight was kind of different? I mean, after a bit of a back and forth first, you guys seemed to really find your game as it went along.
Yeah, I agree. I think the third period was great, but I think the second period isn't a good period by us, but just a good character win. 3 out of 4 points this weekend. We'll take that and continue.
And in that third period, you helped to set up Max Ganette's game-winning goal as well. Can you take us a bit through that one and just how big that was? I mean, the atmosphere here was great when you guys took that lead. What was it like on the bench as you guys headed back there too?
No, it was great. I felt the atmosphere was probably the best we had the whole year tonight, so that was great. The goal, Chaser makes a great play to keep the puck alive in the O-zone. Saw Reeser got it, and I knew he's a skilled player, so I know that he's capable of making that play. So nice little between the leg pass to me, and Maxwell was calling for it loud, so I just trying to send it over to him, and he got the job done.
I want to get your thoughts as well on Malcolm Subban's first full game as a Belleville Senator. With all the bad luck this team's had injury-wise, for him to make some of those saves, especially in that first period, how much did that kind of have an effect on the rest of you guys too?
Oh, it's a huge effect. I mean, we all saw what he did last night. He got put in a pretty tough spot, but he solved it out great last night as well. Even if we didn't get the win, he did his job, and tonight he was outstanding. And very happy for him. He's been such a great guy since he came in. Smile on the face every single day, so I'm happy for him. Great guy.
Speaking of smiles on the faces, you guys had a lot of that the last time you played Syracuse, and they're coming back on Wednesday night. What are the keys in the front of your guys' mind to make it more like that last game against Syracuse and a bit less like the back and forth ones we saw earlier in the season series?
I haven't really focused on that too much, if I'm being honest. Just focus on getting the job done tonight and trying to enjoy this win a little bit before we focus on Syracuse. But we know what type of team they are. They're a heavy team, forecheck hard just as us. So as Belsey usually said before the Syracuse game, we got to make sure we got the best forecheck out there, and we'll be good.
There's Oskar Pettersson's thoughts on the weekend as well. Just the analytical insight from Petey on those goals. It's amazing to me sometimes how much can stick in a player's head from a specific play in a game, given how much action there is. I mean, we get off the air some days and I forget what the score was, and these guys are full-on breaking it down. That's the elite athlete mind, I suppose.
Absolutely, yeah, that great mindset of Pettersson, and it just goes to show you just how many smarts and how much analytical insight you have to have, or just how much you got to be aware of what's going on around the ice and all around you over the course of a season as a pro hockey player, and Pettersson certainly has that, and nice to see him get a goal and feel pretty confident about himself, and makes a nice pass too. Shouldn't forget that. He mentioned about the pass to Gannett. Nice little flick between the feet by Reese right to Pettersson. He slips it out to Gannett, and it's bang, top shelf in the net. Belleville wins the game, and Pettersson with a multi-point game, his first of the season. Nice to get off of that schneid he was on, and gets himself, again, much like Halliday, some more confidence down the stretch drive.
We will leave you with that goal from Oskar Pettersson. Brock on the call, and when we come back, we will tee up this week's games against the Laval Rocket and the Toronto Marlies and the Syracuse Crunch. We are back in just a moment on the Belleville Sens podcast.
behind the net off to the right, actually. Subban. Grabbed now by He'll Davies might have a break here. Jeremy Davies leaves it off for a trailing Pettersson. His shot is in. They score. A big kill turns into a goal to cut the deficit in half for Oskar Pettersson, his second of the year. And Jeremy Davies made that entire play happen. He gets the long stretch feed out of the box, drops it off. Pettersson was trailing, and he zeroes right in through that 5-hole. Dobesh got a piece of it, a huge one, but it still goes sliding right through his 5-hole.
The road to the World Juniors blazes through Belleville. The Belleville Senators and Bay of Quinte Regional Marketing Board present Team Sweden versus Team Germany, an official World Junior Hockey Championship pre-tournament matchup. Monday, December 23rd. Tickets just $23.50 for groups of 10 or more. Witness the next generation of international hockey stars. Sweden, Germany, December 23rd at 3 p.m. Score tickets at the Belleville Senators box office or online at bellevillesens.com.
Season 3, Episode 9 of the Belleville Sens podcast, into our last segment of the week. Thanks to Oskar Pettersson, to Stephen Halliday, and to Malcolm Subban for their time on the weekend, and, Malcolm's time basically daily. He is the most requested interview, perhaps in Belleville Sens history. I'm not sure I fielded so many requests for one player.
Yeah, get him a segment on the podcast here, Malcolm's moment.
That's right, Malcolm. I like that, actually. We'll have to do some looking into that, Brock. And as well, big thanks to Tyler King for doing those interviews. Our PA announcer, Tyler's been helping out on our broadcast and comm side of things as well, so we really appreciate him chipping in and getting those interviews for us after the game. And again, some really good insight, maybe not so much about the games coming up this week because, as Oskar Pettersson said, they were pretty focused on the Laval Rocket on the weekend, but now we can turn our attention back to the Syracuse Crunch and the Toronto Marlies, a couple of teams that the Belleville Sens have already seen this season, Brock, a couple of teams that the Belleville Sens have already had mixed results against this season, and a couple of teams that the rivalry is alive and well, and we've already seen that this season as well.
Yeah, 4 games already against Syracuse. This will be the 4th one coming up on Wednesday night, and it's going to be a very interesting matchup. You can't imagine that there's going to be a whole lot of feeling out process or just dipping the toe in, getting the foot wet a little bit with these two teams. They're going to be going full out, I would imagine, in front of a crowd that hopefully will be pretty sizable for the Sens, and hope to see them cheer them on. It should be majority Belleville, of course, given where they are. And, the Syracuse Crunch have had good luck against Belleville, 2 wins in 3 games, but the last round was taken by the Sens, wrestling away a 6-2 victory in a game that was all Belleville pretty much right from the start. So you got to think the Crunch will have that in the back of their minds. Joel Bouchard, again, a smart guy. He's been around for a while in the AHL, and he knows what it takes to try and adjust, but we'll see if David Bell and his club have the answer. And in a game on the 2nd of this month, November, where it was just pure domination from Belleville, quite frankly, from the start. They were up 3-0, and the game could have been a lot worse, but Syracuse did find a way to adjust mid-game, and the fact that they beat Matt Tompkins, Canadian Olympian, 6 times is pretty impressive considering how well he played against Belleville the last couple of games. But now for Malcolm Subban, it likely gets the start on Wednesday night. You got to think that he'll have an understanding of the Crunch pretty well as well, considering he used to play in Rochester and Cleveland. So right in that North Division, he knows what it takes to get those big saves and get those big wins. So I'll be excited to see Malcolm hopefully between the pipes for Belleville tomorrow night. But for Syracuse, again, we mentioned it last podcast, they get a couple of key forwards back, Gage Gonsalves and Daniel Walcott and Gabe Fortier. And yet they were better off without them because Syracuse won 2 games without them. They come back and the Sens completely walk all over them. So obviously that's not going to happen 2 games in a row. You got to make sure that if you're the Belleville Sens, do you key in on those guys and keep the front of the net protected for Malcolm Subban, just like they did in the 3rd period on Saturday against Laval, holding them to just 4 shots, playing lockdown, drag them out defense, and it worked out well. So we'll see if that transitions into Syracuse.
You mentioned Gage Gonsalves. He was recalled to Tampa as well, not long after rejoining the Syracuse Crunch. A longtime close friend of Jake Chason. Two of them grew up together, and they actually took a photo together on the ice during warm-up when we were in Syracuse a couple of weeks ago. So the Crunch, they've been a really good team this year. Derek Pouliot leading the way against the Senators for Syracuse. 3 goals, 2 assists over their 3 games already in the season series this season. And just to give you an idea of the standings heading into this one, Syracuse 3 points back of Belleville. Sens have fallen back into 5th place in the division because Cleveland played last night, and they've jumped up into 3rd. So we'll get you the full standings after we talk about Toronto. But right now, this game will be an opportunity for Belleville to try to keep pace with the teams like Rochester and Cleveland and try to give themselves a little bit more cushion on a team like Syracuse that's chasing them by 3 points right now. Belleville's also chasing the Toronto Marlies, but only 2 points back of their provincial rivals as we get set for another meeting between those clubs in the first at Scotiabank Arena this season. And it's going to be physical against Syracuse because it has to be, in the sense that that's the way that the Crunch play too. But I think Belleville's got to keep that physicality up against a team like the Toronto Marlies as well, where they are a high-power, fast-paced offense, and you got to bust them up and grind them down a bit to try to slow them a little.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I just saw earlier today Alex Steeves recalled on an emergency basis by the Toronto Maple Leafs, so he may be back before Saturday, but there's one guy, if he's not, that'll be axed out of the situation for the Belleville Sens. One less guy to have to worry about, but the Marlies still do have a really balanced attack, and it's as per usual for this Toronto Marlies club. They were a team that gave the Sens a hard fight last year during the season, and then in the playoffs, that best-of-3 series where anything can happen, and Belleville ends up winning in 3 really solid games, and in the end, they end up pulling out the series victory. So Toronto, obviously, they played 2 games against each other already, so that's out of their minds now. But, you can't ever underestimate the power of a rivalry, and the Toronto Marlies certainly have that. One guy to key in on, of course, Logan Shaw, we mentioned him, former captain of the Sens. He always plays his best games against Belleville. Alex Nylander leading the team in goals with 5. Ryan Tuerberg, 5 assists in 9 games. He didn't play in one of the games. It was the Saturday game here in Belleville, I believe, a couple weekends ago. But another guy to watch out for, Nikita Grabenkin, Russian forward, has 9 points in 10 games. His first season with the Marlies. So a guy to really keep an eye on in terms of offense. But in the end, the Sens just have to keep focusing on themselves. And Coach David Bell will tell you that he'll just need to have his team focus on what they can control, especially when you're playing in a big building where guys, have been in awe before of the big Scotiabank Arena, home of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and things can get a little nervy at times when you're trying to make a big play in a big atmosphere. And I'm sure that Coach Bell will keep his guys, keep them calm, keep them steady, and keep them going from period to period and shift to shift, and not let anything get too big for them.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun in the big building. Most of these guys, I think, by now have had that opportunity either on Boxing Day or NHL preseason or a call-up for that matter. So it will be interesting to see what the crowd's like and how much of an impact that does play on things on Saturday. Tim Durkin and I will be on about 1:15 or so on Saturday afternoon, but not before Brock and I are back on Wednesday for that matchup with Syracuse. That'll be a 6:50 start as usual here on the Belleville Sens Entertainment Network. So those are the matchups this week. Again, Wednesday night is Salvation Army night here at CAA Arena, so we'll kick off their 2024 Kettle campaign. That'll be exciting. And then, of course, 3 buses of Belleville Sens fans headed to Toronto on Saturday. So it is a big building. You might not think that 3 busloads would make a difference, but with the way the Sens fans that have been traveling have been in recent years, I think you'll certainly know exactly where they're set up in the rink on Saturday.
Yeah, they brought the noise before, and they'll do it again, to be sure. And that should be an outstanding game and a great crowd. And again, being that it is at the big rink, you're going to see a lot of back and forth, and a kind of almost envelops you a little bit if you let it. So it's going to be a great atmosphere and a great game between two rival teams as they try to jockey for position in the North Division. Right now, Toronto having themselves an advantage, but the Belleville Sens still are very much in the mix there thanks to the 6-game point streak they're currently on. And if they can end Wednesday and Saturday with 2 more points in the bank, 3 straight wins, and points in 8 consecutive games, that'll be just gravy for them.
Yeah, absolutely. We told you we'd give you a rundown of the standings, so here they are as of the start of the week. Laval Rocket have played 11 games. They lead the North Division with 18 points. Toronto has played 10. They have 16 points. In second place, Cleveland right behind them with 15 points after 12 games. Rochester and Belleville each have 14 points. The Amerks have played 1 more game than the Senators. Belleville's only played 10. The Sens have the 3rd highest points percentage in the league, though, so I'm surprised they're not flipped up in 4th. But either way, Syracuse right behind Belleville by 3 points, and then the Utica Comets, who, was it last year or the year before, they won like 12 or 13 games in a row to start the season, and now here they are winless through 12 games to start the season are the Utica Comets. 9 losses and just 3 points gained with an overtime loss and a couple of shootout defeats. It's been a difficult start down there at the Adirondack Bank Center in Utica, but as we know, teams are able to turn things around relatively quickly in this league and in this division, so you certainly can't count the Comets out at this point either.
No, not at all. And they actually made a coaching change, too. Kevin Dineen is swapped out for Ryan Parent. That happened this week, or last week, I should say. And in the end, the Comets, have the big 0 on their line. But like you said, anybody can beat anybody, and they're getting closer, too. They lost a couple of overtime, or a shootout and overtime defeats, as you said. Yep. So it's disappointing for sure, and something need to happen and fast. Again, may still look like it's early on, maybe 9-10 games into the season. But when you're down by the amount of games that they are, when you're under 500 by that much, something's got to happen and fast if there's going to be in any way a chance to change things. And for Utica, it had to happen. And Kevin Dineen is a pro. He knows how to coach, and he's played in the NHL, AHL for a long time in the past, but something needed to happen in terms of a switch up, maybe just a new voice in the room. And Ryan Parent, so far it seems like it's worked in the sense that they're getting points now. It's just about getting that elusive first win. And for the Utica Comets, again, you can't get complacent playing them because they want to be you don't want to be the first team to lose to a team that's winless for that long. But in the end, they're going to be a difficult team to face, and I'd imagine they're going to get stronger as the season goes along.
Yeah, they're going to have to. And like you say, Brock, something's got to change quick because the longer you look at, first off, the 0 in that first column, let alone the 9 in the column beside it, every time that number that's second from the left grows and the one that's right on the left doesn't, mentally that can be a tough thing to deal with. So we'll keep an eye on the Utica Comets. The Belleville Sens don't have to see them until New Year's Eve when they play here at CAA Arena at 3 p.m., and that will be the next time these teams meet. After that, they will see each other a bunch. That game, the end of December, twice in January, and then like 5 times in February to round out the season series. So for Belleville Sens fans' sake, we hope that Utica hasn't figured it out by then. But they've got some time, certainly. Some final housekeeping before we say goodbye on this episode of the Belleville Sens podcast. A couple of transactions to pass along. First, from the weekend, we mentioned that Levi Merilainen left that game Friday night, and Malcolm Subban had to replace him and then start Saturday. Michael Simpson has been recalled from the Orlando Solar Bears of the ECHL, where he not only picked up his first pro win, but also his first pro shutout recently. He's been off to an outstanding start there with the Solar Bears down in Florida, and he may need to be called into action this week. Also, Zach Ostapchuk returned from Ottawa this morning as the Ottawa Senators get set to take on the Toronto Maple Leafs tonight. Means Shane Pinto is apparently back and ready to go, and the Belleville Sens will certainly welcome Zach Ostapchuk back with open arms.
Absolutely, and a guy that was racking up the points before he left. He had 5, and coming back to fortify that offense a little and give them that boost they need is going to be so important. And it's not that they didn't have a boost on the weekend, but certainly against Syracuse, a team that has already chipped them twice this year in 3 games. That certainly should give Belleville a world of confidence in their offensive game. And for Zach Ostapchuk, getting that experience in Ottawa is so valuable, as it usually is. Picked up his first NHL point as well And now he's back here with Belleville looking to try and make a big impact against a Syracuse team that's going to be difficult to face. And with that big shot and that savvy offensive mind of his, he's going to be a very important piece of this Belleville team as we go along here over the next week.
So Zach Ostapchuk returns on Wednesday. We assume Malcolm Subban will start again, but it could be the first AHL start for Michael Simpson. The only way you're going to find out, or the best way to find out, is to be here. Tickets at Ticketmaster.ca for a 7 o'clock puck drop Wednesday against the Syracuse Crunch, AHL affiliate of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Brock and I, as mentioned, will be on the air around 6:45 or 6:50. If you can't make it, via the Belleville Sens Entertainment Network and AHL TV on Flow Hockey. And then on Saturday, a trip to Toronto. And if you can and feel like making the drive, we'd love to see you there too. That's a 1:30 start against the Toronto Marlies. 1:15 for the pregame show here on the BSEN. That'll do it for us. The Belleville Sens looking to finish off, or continue, I should say, a 6-game point streak on Wednesday against Syracuse. And we will talk to you then, as well as next week on episode 10 of Season 3 of the Belleville Sens podcast. For Brock Ormond, David Foot, thanking you for listening, and we will talk to you next week.